The first thing he felt after dying was not pain. It was silence. A silence so deep that it felt like the entire universe had forgotten his existence. His last memory was of a cold street beneath a sky, the flash of headlights, and the cruel realization that his ordinary life had ended without meaning. He had spent 27 years as a nobody. No great achievements, no legendary talents, no secret bloodline, no hidden destiny waiting to awaken. Just an ordinary man who disappeared from the world as quietly as he entered it. But when his consciousness returned, he discovered something impossible. He was alive again. Not as a human, not as a warrior, not as a powerful mage destined to rule kingdoms. He opened his eyes and found himself floating inside a dark forest puddle, surrounded by towering trees and strange creatures that looked like they had crawled out of a nightmare. Then he felt his new body, soft, round, almost weightless. He tried to move his arms, but there were no arms. He tried to speak, but no voice came out. A terrifying realization slowly entered his mind. He had been reincarnated as a slime, the weakest creature in this entire fantasy world. A monster that most adventurers would crush without hesitation. A creature with almost no attack power, no defense, and no chance of survival. For a moment, despair consumed him. After everything, after receiving a second chance at life, the universe had given him the body of something that even a beginner adventurer would consider useless. But then something strange happened. A mysterious energy flowed through his body. A cold sensation spread across his core, and an unfamiliar presence awakened inside his mind. There was no voice announcing his greatness. No divine being congratulating him. Only a strange instinct telling him one thing: survive. The slime moved through the forest, desperately searching for food and avoiding predators. Every creature around him was stronger. Every shadow could hide a monster capable of ending his new life instantly. A giant wolf passed nearby. Its claws were sharper than swords. Its aura alone made the ground tremble. The slime froze. In his previous life, he would have already accepted death, but something inside him refused to surrender. He was given another life, and he would not waste it. The wolf attacked. At the final moment, the slime instinctively activated his only ability: absorption. His body expanded and swallowed a small portion of the wolf's magical energy. The wolf expected an easy meal. Instead, it felt something impossible. Its power was disappearing. The slime was not merely eating it. He was stealing its strength. A strange phenomenon occurred inside the slime's body. The absorbed energy did not disappear. It transformed. The slime had gained a new ability. But that was not the terrifying part. The terrifying part was that he could combine it. The ability he received was not ordinary absorption. It was a skill hidden beyond common understanding. Skill merger, a power that allowed him to combine abilities, energies, and even fragments of divine authority into something completely new. At first, he did not understand its potential. A small slime absorbing a weak monster's ability seemed meaningless, but then he tested it. The wolf's enhanced senses merged with his natural slime perception. The result was a new ability far greater than either one. His vision expanded. His hearing sharpened. His awareness covered the entire forest. For the first time since reincarnation, he felt something he never had before: hope. Days passed. The weak slime that should have died within hours began hunting stronger creatures. Every battle made him evolve. Every enemy became a source of power. Poisonous plants gave him resistance to toxins. Fire monsters granted him control over flames. Stone creatures gave him a body harder than steel. The monsters of the forest began whispering about a strange creature. A slime that should have been harmless. A slime that absorbed everything. A slime that grew stronger every time someone tried to kill it. But even they did not know the truth. The abilities he absorbed were only the beginning. Because deep beneath the world existed powers that even ancient dragons feared. Godly powers. And one day the slime would reach them. The first clue appeared when he defeated a monster that had lived for thousands of years. The creature was not a simple beast. It was a forgotten guardian created by an ancient civilization. Inside its body was a fragment of power that did not belong to any mortal creature. When the slime absorbed it, his entire body trembled. A feeling unlike anything before surged through him. His skill merger activated on its own. The abilities he had collected began moving together: fire, water, earth, wind, regeneration, magic resistance, monster instincts. Thousands of small powers combined into a single force. A new ability was born, not because a god gifted it to him, not because fate chose him, but because he created it himself. The world had underestimated the weakest creature, and that mistake would become its greatest disaster. Years later, Legends would tell stories of a monster that defeated armies without lifting a weapon, a creature that swallowed legendary heroes and inherited their techniques, a being that challenged gods themselves. But before becoming a nightmare to the heavens, he was nothing more than a tiny slime struggling to survive. And his journey began with a single decision. He would no longer run from the strong. He would consume them. He would merge their powers. He would surpass every limit placed upon him. Deep within the ancient forest, a new era was beginning. The first creatures to sense it were the strongest ones. Ancient dragons opened their eyes. Hidden gods turned their attention toward the mortal world, and the beings who had ruled for countless centuries felt something they had never felt before: fear. Because somewhere in the forgotten corner of the world, a weak slime had awakened, and that slime possessed the one ability that could destroy the balance of existence: the power to take everything and become something greater. The first godly fragment appeared before him like a falling star. The moment it touched his body, the entire forest went silent. The trees stopped moving, the monsters stopped breathing. Even the sky seemed to freeze. Because the skill merger was no longer combining ordinary abilities. It had found something far more dangerous, a fragment of divine authority. And the moment the slime absorbed it, a terrifying truth was revealed. He was not chosen by the gods, he was created to surpass them. I can also create an image that visualizes the evolution path of this slime protagonist. The divine fragment did not bring salvation. It brought a warning. The moment the slime absorbed the mysterious power, an overwhelming pressure descended upon the ancient forest. The air itself became heavy, forcing every living creature nearby to lower its head. The weakest monsters collapsed first, then the stronger ones. Even creatures that had survived for centuries trembled before an invisible force they could not understand. But the slime remained standing, or rather floating. Inside his small transparent body, countless energies collided violently. The divine fragment was unlike anything he had absorbed before. Monster abilities were simple. They followed natural laws. Fire burned, water stone hardened, wind moved. But divine power was different. It was not an ability, it was a rule. A piece of authority that allowed its owner to command a small part of reality itself. The slime felt his existence being rewritten. His body, which had once been nothing more than a collection of weak magical cells, began transforming at a fundamental level. The skill merger activated. The abilities he had collected throughout his journey appeared inside his consciousness like countless threads: regeneration, enhanced perception, elemental magic resistance, physical reinforcement. Thousands of acquired powers connected together, attempting to merge with the divine fragment. But for the first time, the skill merger struggled. The slime felt something he had never experienced before: resistance. The divine power refused to be combined. It considered itself superior. It was the authority of a higher being. A mortal creature, even one that had evolved beyond normal limits, had no right to possess it. A message echoed within his mind. Not a voice, not an announcement. A simple instinct from the divine fragment itself. Reject, the slime understood. The gods had not created their powers to be stolen. They had created them to remain forever above all other beings. For countless ages, they had looked down upon monsters, humans, and every other creature as insignificant pieces on a board. But they never imagined that one of those pieces could consume the board itself. The slime's core began cracking under the pressure. His existence was unstable. If he failed, the divine fragment would destroy him from within. A normal monster would have died instantly. Even ancient dragons would have struggled. But the slime remembered his first moments in this world: the fear, the weakness, the helplessness. He remembered being hunted by creatures that considered him nothing. He remembered crawling through the forest while desperately trying to survive. He remembered every moment when the world told him he was worthless, and something inside him refused to accept defeat. He had already died once. He had already lost everything once. This second life belonged to him. No god, no fate, no power, nothing would take it away. The slime forced the skill merger to continue. Instead of trying to control the divine fragment, he changed his approach. He did not overpower it. He did not fight against it. He merged with it. The difference was subtle, but it changed everything. The skill merger was never meant to simply steal abilities. It was meant to understand them, to break them apart, to rebuild them into something greater. The divine fragment contained absolute authority over a single concept, but the slime had thousands of other powers. Together, they created something the gods had never considered: a new form of existence. The divine energy slowly dissolved. The resistance disappeared, and the impossible happened. The slime absorbed a piece of godly power. The entire forest erupted with magical energy. Trees older than kingdoms shattered from the pressure. Mountains in the distance cracked. The sky changed color as a storm of energy spread across the continent. Far away, beings who had not moved for thousands of years awakened. Deep beneath the ocean, an ancient creature opened its eyes. In a forgotten temple above the clouds, a group of divine beings looked toward the mortal realm. Something impossible had occurred. A divine fragment had vanished, not destroyed, not stolen, consumed. One of the gods whispered a word that had not been spoken since the beginning of creation. Impossible. For them, power was everything. They believed strength created superiority. They believed weaker beings existed only to serve stronger ones. But now a creature at the bottom of the hierarchy had broken their greatest rule. Power could be taken. Power could be merged. Power could evolve beyond its original owner. And the creature responsible was a slime. Back in the forest, the transformation continued. The slime's appearance remained almost unchanged. That was the most terrifying part. There was no dramatic evolution. No enormous body. No intimidating form. He still looked like a harmless little slime. But inside that tiny body existed power capable of challenging legends. His senses expanded beyond the limits of normal creatures. He could feel magical energy flowing through the entire forest. He could sense creatures hiding miles away. He could understand the structure of spells he had never seen before. The world itself had become a book, and he could finally read it. But the new power came with a cost. The moment he absorbed divine authority, he became visible. Before, he had been an unknown monster growing quietly. Now the strongest beings in the world knew his existence. The gods had noticed him, and they would not ignore him. A few days later, the first hunters arrived. They were not ordinary adventurers. They wore armor created from rare materials. Their weapons carried blessings from divine beings. Every single one of them possessed enough power to destroy entire villages. They entered the forest searching for the strange creature that had stolen divine authority. They expected a terrifying monster, a massive beast, a creature surrounded by endless destruction. Instead, they found a small slime resting beside a river. The hunters laughed. They thought they had found a mistake. A joke created by rumors. One of them stepped forward. "You are the creature that stole the god's power?" The slime looked at them silently. He could feel their strength. He could feel the divine energy flowing through their weapons. A normal monster would have escaped. But he was no longer the creature that ran from wolves. The hunter raised his sword. "Even if you obtained a fragment of divine power, you are still nothing but a monster." The words reminded the slime of his old life. The people who ignored him. The world that never noticed him. The countless times he was considered insignificant. But this time he did not feel anger. He felt something colder, determination. The hunter attacked. The sword descended with enough force to split a mountain. But before it reached the slime, the weapon stopped. The hunter froze. His sword was trapped, not by armor, not by a shield, by the slime's body. The same soft body that should have been destroyed absorbed the attack effortlessly. The hunter's expression changed. Impossible. The slime had merged the divine fragment with his defensive abilities. A normal barrier blocked attacks. His new ability understood attacks. It analyzed them, adapted to them, and created the perfect response. The slime slowly absorbed the energy from the sword. The divine blessing disappeared. The hunter fell backward in shock. The other warriors immediately attacked. Fire, lightning, sacred blades. Ancient magic. Everything they possessed was unleashed at once. The forest disappeared beneath a storm of destruction. But when the smoke cleared, the slime remained. Unchanged, the hunters finally understood. They were not facing a monster that had become strong. They were facing a creature that made strength meaningless. Every attack against him became another source of evolution. Every enemy became another step forward. The slime moved toward them. For the first time, the hunters felt true fear. Not because of his appearance, not because of his size, but because they realized something horrifying. They had come to eliminate a monster. Instead, they had delivered more power directly to him. The slime absorbed their abilities one by one. Sword mastery, sacred energy control, divine resistance, ancient combat techniques. Everything merged inside him. And with every new ability, the distance between him and the gods became smaller. But somewhere beyond the mortal world, the highest divine beings were watching. They understood the danger now. A creature that could absorb power had existed before, but a creature that could improve the power it absorbed had never existed. The skill merger was not just an ability, it was evolution itself. And if the slime continued growing, one day even the gods would become nothing more than ingredients for his next transformation. Then, for the first time in thousands of years, the heavens made a decision. They would descend personally. They would destroy the slime before he became something that even they could not control. And as divine armies began gathering above the clouds, the small slime looked toward the sky. He could feel them coming. The beings who believed they ruled everything. The beings who believed no creature could ever surpass them. The slime smiled internally. Because they had made the same mistake everyone else had made. They underestimated him. The sky above the ancient forest began to fracture, not because of a natural disaster, not because of some uncontrollable magical phenomenon, but because something far more terrifying was descending. The heavens themselves were opening. For thousands of years, the gods had remained distant from the mortal world. They watched civilizations rise and fall. They watched heroes become legends and monsters become forgotten. They never interfered, because they believed nothing below them deserved their attention. But now something had changed. A small slime had forced the heavens to acknowledge its existence, and that alone was considered an unforgivable sin. The clouds turned golden as countless divine soldiers emerged from the rift above. Their armor shone brighter than the sun. Their weapons carried the authority of ancient gods. Each one of them was stronger than legendary heroes worshipped by entire nations. They were not an army created to conquer. They were an army created to erase. Their mission was simple: find the slime, destroy it, erase every trace of its existence. Because the gods feared one possibility above all others. If the slime continued absorbing divine power, then one day, the gods would no longer be gods. They would simply become prey. Deep inside the forest, the slime watched the approaching army. He could feel every presence above him: thousands of soldiers, hundreds of divine artifacts, several beings whose power surpassed anything he had encountered before. A normal creature would have hidden. A normal creature would have escaped. But the slime no longer measured enemies by their strength. He measured them by their potential. Every divine warrior carried something valuable. Every godly weapon contained knowledge. Every sacred ability represented another step toward evolution. They had not come to destroy him. They had come to feed him. The first divine soldier descended. The moment his feet touched the ground, the entire forest was crushed beneath his aura. Trees turned to dust. Rivers evaporated. Weak monsters nearby lost consciousness instantly. The soldier looked down at the slime. So this is the creature that stole divine authority. His voice echoed across the land. You are nothing. The slime remained silent. The soldier raised his weapon. This world has existed for countless ages. Creatures like you are born, struggle, and disappear. You are an accident that should have never happened. The slime remembered hearing those words before. Not from gods, from humans. From monsters. From everyone who judged him by his appearance: weak, useless, worthless. But every single one of them had made the same mistake. They only saw what he was. They never imagined what he could become. The divine soldier attacked. A single strike capable of splitting mountains. But the slime did not dodge. The blade passed through his body. For a moment, the soldier smiled. Then his expression changed. The sword began disappearing. The divine energy covering the blade started flowing into the slime. The soldier stepped back. What are you doing? The slime had activated his newest ability. Not a skill stolen from another creature. Not a power gifted by the gods. Something created by the skill merger itself. Divine assimilation. An ability born from combining absorption, adaptation, and divine authority. It did not simply steal power. It understood the fundamental nature of the power. Then it made that power belong to him. The soldier's divine blessing vanished completely. His weapon became ordinary metal. His expression turned into disbelief. A god's blessing, something that countless warriors prayed their entire lives to receive, had disappeared in seconds. The slime moved forward. The soldier attacked again with his physical strength. But it was too late. The slime had already analyzed him. His movement patterns, his energy flow, his combat style, everything. The skill merger transformed the information into understanding. The slime had not fought a divine warrior. He had studied one, and now he knew how to defeat one. The battle ended instantly. The divine soldier collapsed. The remaining army became silent. For the first time, they looked at the slime not as an insignificant monster, but as a threat, a terrifying threat. Then dozens attacked together. The forest became a battlefield. Divine lightning tore through the sky. Sacred flames burned across the land. Weapons blessed by ancient gods descended like falling stars, but the slime continued advancing. Every attack became meaningless. Every spell became research. Every ability became another piece of his evolution. The divine army slowly realized the truth. The more they fought, the stronger he became. They were not weakening him. They were accelerating his growth. A commander among the divine forces finally understood. Stop attacking. His voice shook with panic, but it was already too late. The slime had absorbed hundreds of different divine techniques. The skill merger was overflowing. Too many powers. Too many concepts. Too much energy. Even his evolved body began struggling to contain everything. But instead of breaking apart, something unexpected happened. The skill merger reached a new stage. Until now, it had combined abilities. Now it began combining concepts. Fire was no longer just fire. It became destruction. Regeneration was no longer healing. It became endless existence. Defense was no longer protection. It became immunity against harm itself. The slime was no longer collecting skills, he was rewriting them. Above the battlefield, the highest gods finally appeared. They had been watching, waiting, analyzing, and now they understood. The slime had surpassed the point where ordinary methods could stop him. A massive figure emerged from the golden sky. The pressure from its appearance alone caused the entire continent to tremble. This was not a soldier, not a servant, not a messenger. This was one of the original gods, a being that had existed since the birth of the world. Its voice shook reality itself. Little creature. The slime looked upward. You have consumed powers that were never meant for you. The god raised one hand. You have broken the order of creation. The sky darkened. The weak must remain weak. The slime stared silently. Then he felt something inside his core, a memory. His first day in this world. The moment he realized he was only a weak slime, the fear, the desperation, the loneliness. If he had accepted that fate, he would have already disappeared. The slime slowly moved upward, floating toward the god. The god looked surprised. You dare approach me? The slime's response was simple. He did not speak. He did not need to. His entire existence was the answer. He had started as the weakest creature in the world. And now he stood before the creator of countless powers. Not because he was chosen, not because he was blessed, because every defeat, every struggle, every enemy had become part of his evolution. The god released its power. The universe shook. A wave of divine energy covered the entire sky. This was an attack capable of destroying civilizations, but the slime did not move. The skill merger analyzed it. The energy was broken apart. The concept was understood. The weakness was discovered. And then the impossible happened. The slime absorbed the attack. The god's expression changed. For the first time since creation began, a god felt fear. Because the slime had not stolen a fragment this time, he had absorbed an entire divine technique. And the skill merger revealed a new truth. Gods were not the source of power. They were simply creatures who had mastered it first. And if their knowledge could be absorbed, then even the heavens had limits. The slime looked at the god, and the god finally understood. The creature before him was no longer trying to become powerful. He was becoming something beyond power itself, something that had no place in the old order of the world, something that could replace it. The battlefield went silent. The divine army watched in horror, because their greatest weapon had just become the slime's newest ability, and now the creature they came to erase was preparing to challenge the entire divine realm. The divine realm trembled. For the first time since the beginning of creation, the gods were no longer watching a battle. They were witnessing a transformation. The small slime floating in the middle of the battlefield had become something the laws of the universe could not explain. A creature born without power. A creature that should have been crushed at the bottom of the food chain. A creature that was never supposed to reach this point. Yet now, it stood before the highest beings in existence and consumed their greatest attacks as if they were nothing more than fragments waiting to be collected. The original god stared at the slime in silence. For countless years, this god had watched civilizations rise and collapse. It had witnessed heroes who challenged fate. It had witnessed monsters that conquered continents. It had witnessed ancient beings that reached the peak of evolution. But none of them had ever caused fear, because every creature had a limit. Every power had a boundary. Every existence had a final stage. Except this slime. The god could no longer understand what it was looking at. The skill merger had evolved beyond a simple ability. It had become a force that challenged the foundation of the world. The god raised its hand again. This time, it did not release an attack. Instead, it opened a connection to the source of divine authority itself. The entire sky split apart. Beyond the clouds, beyond the stars, beyond the visible universe, an endless ocean of divine energy appeared. This was the origin of countless miracles, the place where every divine ability was born. The god looked down at the slime. "You have taken fragments of power from my servants," the voice echoed across dimensions. "But you have forgotten one thing." The divine energy began pouring downward. "You are still a creature created by this world." The pressure became unbearable. "The laws of existence still belong to us." The slime felt the force entering his body. This was different. The previous divine attacks were abilities. This was the foundation behind those abilities. The source. The origin. A normal creature would have disappeared instantly. Even the strongest ancient monsters would have been reduced to nothing. But the slime remained, his body shook, his core burned. The skill merger began analyzing something beyond anything it had ever encountered. The origin of divine power. The structure of creation itself. The slime realized something incredible. The gods had never created power, they had discovered it. They had learned how to control pieces of a much greater system. And now, for the first time, someone else was learning the same secrets. The god noticed the change. The divine energy it released was disappearing. Not being blocked, not being resisted, being understood. The god's expression changed. Stop. The command carried absolute authority. Reality itself obeyed. Time slowed. Space froze. Every living creature in the world became trapped. But one being continued moving. The god stared in disbelief. How? The slime had merged his resistance abilities with divine authority, then combined them with adaptation, then fused them with his understanding of energy. The result was something that should not exist. A being no longer controlled by the rules. A being that could evolve around them. The slime moved closer. The god finally understood. Every time they tried to stop him, they gave him something new. Every attack, every technique, every divine law. Everything became fuel. The gods had spent eternity collecting power. The slime had spent a short time learning how to surpass it. The god released its final weapon. A blade formed from pure divine judgment appeared in its hand. This was not a weapon designed to kill. It was designed to erase. Anything struck by it would lose its existence, no resurrection. No trace left behind. The god swung. The blade crossed the distance instantly. The entire world waited. Then the blade stopped. The slime had caught it, not with strength, with understanding. The skill merger had analyzed the concept behind the weapon. The blade did not destroy matter. It destroyed the connection between existence and reality. So the slime changed. His body adjusted. His existence became something that no longer depended on the world's recognition. The weapon shattered. The sound echoed throughout the heavens. The divine army fell silent. The original god stepped backward. Impossible. A god had retreated. A being worshipped by countless civilizations had taken a step away from a slime, and everyone saw it. The legend had begun. The weakest creature had surpassed the strongest beings. But the slime was not satisfied, because he finally discovered something. The divine realm was not the end. It was only another level. There were still countless mysteries, ancient powers hidden beyond the gods, unknown dimensions, forgotten existences. The universe was much larger than he imagined. And the skill merger continued searching. It wanted more. Not because of greed, not because of ambition, because evolution had become his nature. The god looked at him with a complicated expression. "You do not understand what you are becoming." The slime stopped. The god continued. "Power without limits does not create freedom. It creates loneliness." For a moment, the slime remembered his previous life. A world where he had been surrounded by millions of people, yet still felt invisible. A world where strength was measured by status and achievement. A world where ordinary people disappeared without anyone noticing. But this time was different. This time he had a choice. He was not chasing power because he wanted to rule. He wanted power because he never wanted to be helpless again. The slime looked toward the shattered sky. Then he turned back to the gods. He had no hatred, no desire for revenge. Only determination. The divine realm had made one mistake. They thought becoming stronger meant standing above everyone else. But the slime had discovered something different. True evolution was not about becoming superior. It was about becoming impossible to break. The original god lowered its weapon. For the first time, the ancient being understood that this battle could not be won through force. The slime could not be defeated by stronger attacks, because every attack created a stronger version of him. The only way to stop him was to understand him, and the gods had never tried. They had only judged. The divine army slowly retreated. Not because they were ordered, because they were afraid. The creature they came to destroy had become something they could no longer classify. Monster. Human, god, none of those words applied anymore. The slime returned to the ancient forest. The battlefield behind him was silent, but the world had changed. Every kingdom, every monster tribe, every hidden civilization. Soon they would hear the same story. A weak slime had defeated the heavens. And this was only the beginning. Because far beyond the divine realm, something else had awakened. Something older than the gods. Something that had been watching the entire time. A presence that even the gods feared. It opened its eyes after countless ages of sleep. And when it looked toward the mortal world, it did not see a monster. It saw an opportunity, a creature capable of absorbing anything, a creature capable of merging anything, a creature that might finally break the final barrier of existence. The ancient being smiled. Because after an eternity of waiting, a worthy opponent had finally appeared. The ancient presence opened its eyes. For an existence that had slept beyond the flow of time itself, even the smallest movement caused reality to tremble. Stars flickered, dimensions shook. Countless worlds felt a strange disturbance without understanding its cause. The gods who had ruled over creation for endless ages immediately sensed it. And for the first time since the slime appeared, they felt something worse than fear. They felt desperation, because they knew exactly what had awakened before the gods, before the first civilizations, before the laws that governed life and death were established. There existed beings that stood outside the system of creation, the primordial ones, ancient entities that did not control power. They were the reason power existed. The gods were not their creators. They were merely descendants who inherited fragments of their knowledge. And now one of those forgotten beings had awakened because of the slime. Deep within a dimension hidden from reality, the ancient being observed the mortal world. Its eyes passed through countless barriers. It saw the destroyed divine army. It saw the shattered weapons of gods. It saw the tiny slime floating peacefully within the ancient forest. And then it laughed, a sound that had not been heard for millions of years. Interesting, the voice alone distorted space. A creature born from nothing has consumed the authority of those who believed they were everything. The ancient being continued watching. The skill merger, it is not merely an ability. It is a flaw in the structure of existence. The primordial one understood what the gods failed to realize. The slime was not dangerous because of his current strength. He was dangerous because there was no final form waiting for him. Every creature had a destination. Dragons evolved into ancient rulers. Humans reached the peak of magic. Gods achieved eternal existence. But the slime had no destination. He was an endless process, a being that transformed every experience into evolution. And that was something even the oldest beings had never encountered. Back in the forest, the slime sensed the new presence. For the first time in a long while, he felt something he could not analyze. The skill merger attempted to understand it. But nothing happened. No information appeared. No weakness was discovered. No ability could be copied. The slime became still. This was the first time since his reincarnation that he encountered something beyond his understanding. And strangely, he felt excited. Not afraid. Excited. Because after reaching a level where gods became nothing more than sources of power, he finally found something truly unknown. The unknown was what created evolution. Without challenges, growth stopped. Without obstacles, strength became meaningless. The slime looked toward the distant sky. The primordial one noticed. For a moment, both beings stared at each other across impossible distances. Then the ancient being spoke. Little creature. The voice reached the slime directly. You have surpassed the gods. The slime remained silent. But do you truly believe that is the end? The forest became quiet. The ancient being continued. The gods were merely children playing with stolen flames. You have defeated children, but can you challenge the ones who created the fire? The slime's core began glowing. Not from fear, from anticipation. The primordial one smiled. Good. You are different from the others. Most creatures seek power because they want to stand above everything. But you seek power because you refuse to ever become powerless again. The slime understood. This being was not attacking him. It was testing him. But the difference between a test and a battle was meaningless when both sides possessed overwhelming power. A crack appeared in the sky. A passage between dimensions opened. The primordial one descended. The moment it arrived, the entire world changed. Gravity disappeared. Magic stopped functioning. Time slowed. The natural laws that governed existence bent around its presence. The slime analyzed everything. And for the first time, the skill merger hesitated, not because it was unable to absorb the power, because it could not determine where the power began. The primordial one was not using energy. Its existence itself was energy. Its body was a living law. Its thoughts shaped reality. The slime realized something terrifying. The gods had power. This being was power. The ancient being looked at the slime. Show me. The slime moved. The battle began. There was no explosion, no dramatic clash, because their first collision happened beyond physical movement. Their abilities collided. The slime's adaptation against the primordial one's existence. The skill merger attempted to combine. The ancient being attempted to erase. For the first time, the slime was pushed backward, not because he was weaker, because he had reached an opponent who forced him to evolve in a completely different direction. The primordial one attacked, a single wave of energy. The slime absorbed it. But this time, something unexpected happened. The power did not become his. Instead, the energy entered his body and changed him. The skill merger could not simply take it. It had to evolve to understand it. The slime's form began changing, not physically, something deeper. His very existence started transforming. The abilities he had collected throughout his journey began merging together. Not hundreds, not thousands. Everything, every monster he defeated, every enemy he overcame, every divine power he absorbed, every lesson he learned, all of it connected. The skill merger reached its ultimate state. It no longer merged skills. It merged experiences. The slime finally understood. The strongest ability he possessed was never absorption. It was growth. The ability to turn every moment into a greater version of himself. The primordial one smiled. Now you understand. The slime looked forward. For the first time, his evolution was not forced by survival. It was chosen. The battle continued. But the difference was clear. The primordial one was no longer fighting a creature trying to become stronger. It was fighting a creature that had finally understood what strength truly meant. The slime's body changed. His presence expanded. The world reacted. Ancient monsters across the universe awakened. Lost civilizations looked toward the sky. Even the remaining gods watched in silence. Because they realized something. The slime was no longer climbing toward the level of gods. He had passed that stage. Now he was walking toward a place where even the primordial ones had never reached. A place beyond power, beyond evolution, beyond existence itself. The primordial one launched its final attack. A strike containing the force of countless eras. The attack that had ended civilizations before they were born. The attack that had erased countless challengers throughout history. The slime faced it directly. And then, he did something impossible. He did not absorb it. He did not merge it. He released it. The primordial one froze, because the slime had finally reached the next stage. He no longer needed to take power from others. He could create his own. The tiny creature that was once considered the weakest monster in the world had achieved something no god and no ancient being had ever achieved. True independence, the ability to stand without borrowing anything, the ability to evolve without consuming, the ability to become infinite by his own existence. The primordial one looked at him, and for the first time in countless ages, it bowed its head slightly, not in defeat, in recognition. You have surpassed the purpose of the skill merger. The slime remained silent. The ancient being smiled. Now the real journey begins, because beyond the realm of gods, beyond the realm of primordial ones, there existed another mystery, a final boundary that no creature had ever crossed, the origin of all existence. And now the universe itself had begun preparing for the arrival of the only being capable of reaching it. The slime looked toward the endless darkness beyond the stars. Somewhere out there was the final answer. The reason why everything existed. The reason why power existed. The reason why he had been reincarnated. And for the first time since his death in his previous life, he wondered. Was his reincarnation truly an accident? Or had the universe itself created him for this moment? The answer was hidden beyond the stars. For countless ages, every civilization had searched for the origin of existence. Some believed it was a god. Some believed it was magic. Some believed the universe had always existed without reason. But now, the slime had reached a place where even the oldest beings had never arrived. A place where the truth of creation waited. The moment he crossed beyond the boundary of the known universe, everything changed. There were no stars, no planets, no endless oceans of energy. Only silence. A silence deeper than the emptiness he experienced after his first death. But this time, the silence did not feel lonely. It felt ancient, as if the entire universe was waiting. The slime moved forward. His body no longer needed a physical form, yet he maintained his familiar appearance. A small, harmless slime. The same shape that once caused others to laugh. The same body that everyone believed represented weakness. But now, that appearance carried a meaning completely different from before. He was proof that beginnings did not determine endings. A faint light appeared in the darkness. At first it looked like a tiny spark. Then it expanded. A world appeared inside that light. Not a planet, not a dimension. A memory. The slime saw countless scenes unfolding. The birth of stars. The creation of magic. The first monsters. The first humans. The rise of the gods. The emergence of the primordial ones. Everything that had ever happened existed within this light. The slime realized he was not seeing history. He was seeing the foundation of reality itself. Then a voice appeared. Not from outside. From within you finally arrived. The slime stopped. The voice was different from the gods. Different from the primordial one. It carried no arrogance, no desire to dominate, only endless exhaustion. Who are you? For the first time in his existence, the slime spoke. His voice was no longer impossible. After reaching beyond ordinary existence, communication itself had become something he could control. The answer came slowly. I am the first thought. The light expanded. I am the beginning before the beginning. I am the reason existence was created. The slime remained silent. The voice continued. Before the universe existed, there was only nothing. Not darkness, not emptiness, nothing. And from that nothing, a single question appeared. Could something exist? The slime watched the endless memories. And that question became reality. The voice belonged to the origin itself, the first concept, the first desire, the first possibility. But existence required rules. Those laws became energy. Energy became worlds. And life created gods. The slime understood. Everything he had fought, everything he had absorbed, everything he had surpassed, was part of a much larger cycle, the voice continued. But every creation has a flaw. The light became darker. Rules create order, but rules also create limits. The gods became trapped by their own authority. The primordial ones became trapped by their own existence. Every being eventually became limited by what they were. The slime looked at himself. Then he understood. The skill merger was not a random ability. It was the universe's answer to its own problem. A way to overcome limitation. A way for existence to continue evolving. But then another question appeared. Why him? The voice answered before he asked. Because you were the only one who started with nothing. The slime froze. The gods were born with power. The ancient beings were born with knowledge. Heroes were born with potential. But you began with weakness. The memories returned. His first days as a slime. His fear, his struggles, his desperate attempts to survive. Every creature he defeated, every power he gained, every moment where he refused to give up. Because you had nothing, you understood the value of everything. The voice became softer. Those born at the top rarely understand the journey upward. But you experienced every step. The slime looked at the endless universe below him. For the first time, he understood his entire journey. The wolves, the monsters, the heroes, the gods, the primordial one. None of them were meaningless battles. They were lessons. They were pieces of himself. The skill merger had never truly been about stealing power. It was about connection. Every existence he encountered became part of his story. Every enemy left behind knowledge. Every struggle created growth. The voice asked one final question. Now that you know the truth, what will you do? The slime looked back toward the universe. He could create worlds, destroy worlds, rewrite reality. He had reached a level where nothing could stop him. The power of gods was insignificant. The power of ancient beings was no longer unreachable. Even the origin itself had acknowledged him. He could become the ruler of everything. But then he remembered his old life. A simple life, a quiet life. A life where he was not powerful, where he was not special, and he realized something. Power was never what he truly wanted. He wanted a chance to live, a chance to experience, a chance to protect the things that mattered. The slime turned toward the voice. I want to return. The universe became silent. Return? Yes. I don't want to stand above everything. I want to stand among everything. The light trembled, because the answer was unexpected. Every being that reached this level chose control. They wanted worship. They wanted domination. They wanted to become the only existence that mattered. But the slime wanted something different. Connection. The origin remained silent for a long time. Then it laughed, a genuine laugh. You truly are different. The light began disappearing. Then take your final evolution. The slime felt something enter his core. Not power, not energy, something far greater. Understanding. The final ability created by the skill merger awakened. not an ability to absorb, not an ability to merge, an ability to create. The slime had reached the final stage. The stage beyond endless evolution. The stage where evolution itself became a choice. He was no longer a creature that adapted to the world. He was a creature that could create new possibilities. The universe opened. A path appeared. A path leading back. Before leaving, the slime looked at the origin one last time. Will I remember everything? The answer was simple. No, the slime paused. Why? Because if you remember everything, your next journey would have no meaning. The light faded. Sometimes the greatest strength is choosing to experience life as if it is new. The slime understood. Then he fell. Back through dimensions. Back through time. Back toward the world where everything began. The gods felt his return. The primordial ones noticed. The universe itself reacted. But something was different. The overwhelming pressure was gone. The terrifying presence disappeared. The being that could challenge creation itself had vanished. Only a small slime remained, floating beneath the familiar trees of the ancient forest. A weak slime, a harmless slime, exactly as he had been at the beginning. A group of small monsters nearby noticed him. They laughed. A slime? That's the weakest monster here. The slime looked at them and smiled. Because this time, he knew something they didn't. Every legend begins with something insignificant. Every journey begins with a first step. And every impossible existence once started as something ordinary. The slime moved forward. A new adventure was waiting. Not to become a god, not to surpass the universe, but simply to live. However, far above the world, beyond the sight of even ancient beings, a tiny crack appeared in reality. Something had noticed him. Something even older than the origin. And a new voice whispered through the endless void. So the final possibility has awakened. The slime did not hear it, not yet, but one day he would. Because even after reaching the end of evolution, there was still another beginning waiting. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. The small slime moved through the trees, feeling the warmth of sunlight touching his transparent body. Everything looked exactly the same as before. The ancient trees, the flowing river, the creatures hiding between the shadows. Yet he knew the truth. Nothing was truly the same. Because he was no longer the same. The power that once shook dimensions was now hidden deep within him. The ability that could rewrite reality had become something silent, waiting patiently. For the first time since his reincarnation, the slime experienced something unfamiliar. Peace. Before, every moment was a struggle. Every sound could mean death. Every encounter could become a battle. He was always running, always absorbing, always evolving because he had no other choice. But now he could simply exist. And strangely, that felt more difficult than fighting gods. Because when survival was the only goal, the path was simple. Move forward. Become stronger. Defeat anything in the way. But when there was nothing left to defeat, what was he supposed to chase? The slime continued wandering until he reached a small village near the edge of the forest. It was a place that most powerful beings would ignore. A few wooden houses, a small market, ordinary people living ordinary lives. But to the slime, it was fascinating. He watched children laughing. He watched farmers working. He watched people celebrating small victories, a good harvest, a successful hunt, a peaceful day, things that powerful beings often forgot. The slime remembered the words of the origin. The greatest strength was not standing above everything. It was standing among everything. So he decided. This time he would not seek power. He would seek experience. He entered the village. At first, everyone was cautious. A monster entering their home was unusual. Some villagers prepared weapons. Some stepped backward. The slime could sense their fear, and he understood. Because once, he had been afraid of the stronger creatures too. But then a small child approached. Everyone shouted. "Don't get close." The child ignored them. She looked at the slime curiously. "Are you lost?" The slime stopped. Such a simple question. Yet it carried something he had not felt in a long time. Kindness. The slime moved closer. The child smiled. "You are different from the other monsters." The villagers watched carefully. They expected danger. They expected destruction. But nothing happened. The slime simply stayed there. A harmless little creature. The villagers slowly lowered their weapons. Days passed. The slime remained near the village. He helped where he could. Using small amounts of his power, he repaired damaged tools. He purified poisoned water. He protected travelers from dangerous monsters. But he never revealed his true strength. Because he finally understood. If he solved every problem instantly, people would never grow. And if he controlled everything, they would never truly live. So he became a silent guardian. Small slime that everyone underestimated. Again, But this time it was his choice. However, the universe had not forgotten him. Far away beyond the reach of gods and ancient beings, something watched. The same presence that whispered after his return. The one older than the origin itself. It observed the slime living peacefully, and it was confused. Why? A voice echoed through the void. Why would a being capable of rewriting existence choose such a meaningless life? The darkness remained silent. Then another voice answered, because that is exactly why he is dangerous. The first voice questioned. Explain, the second voice replied. Every powerful being before him was controlled by desire. They wanted more power, more territory, more worship. But this creature, he has already obtained everything. And he still chooses compassion. The darkness shifted. For the first time, the unknown beings beyond creation became interested. A creature that reached the highest level of existence but rejected control. A being with unlimited power that chose restraint. Such an existence was unpredictable. And unpredictability was the greatest threat of all. Back in the village, the slime sensed something strange. A small crack appeared in the sky. Not like the arrival of gods. Not like the entrance of the primordial one. This was different. The crack did not release power. It released absence, a void. A place where even reality disappeared. The villagers panicked. The slime looked upward. His instincts immediately awakened. The skillmerger reacted, but this time it did not try to absorb. It warned him. For the first time ever, the ability showed hesitation. Something existed beyond its understanding. The slime floated higher, the sky cracked wider, a figure stepped through. It looked like a human, but the slime immediately understood. Appearance meant nothing. This being was not human, not monster, not God. Not even a primordial one. It was something from outside the system itself. The figure looked at the slime. So you are the one. The slime remained silent, the one who broke the cycle. The figure looked around the world. The one who reached the end and chose to begin again. The slime studied the stranger. What do you want? The figure smiled. I wanted to see whether the rumors were true. Rumors? That a creature with infinite power had achieved something impossible. The figure stepped closer. Freedom. The slime felt the atmosphere change. This was not an enemy like the gods. Not a challenger like the primordial one. This being was searching for an answer. What are you? The figure looked toward the endless sky. I am from beyond creation. The place where possibilities that never happened continue to exist. The slime understood. Another realm, another mystery, another boundary, the figure continued. Your existence is a contradiction. You were supposed to become a god, but you refused. You were supposed to rule, but you chose to protect. You were supposed to end the story, but you created a new beginning. The slime remained still, the figure smiled, and that is why I came. The wind stopped, the entire village became silent. I want to know, can someone who has reached the end still create something new? The slime looked at the villagers below, at the people living simple lives, at the world he once wanted to escape. Then he looked back at the mysterious being. He already knew the answer. Yes, because evolution was never about reaching the final form. It was about continuing forward. The slime moved toward the unknown visitor, not as a god, not as a supreme being, but as a traveler, a creature still searching. The figure smiled. Good. Then your next journey begins now. The crack in the sky expanded. Beyond it waited a place no god had ever seen. A realm where abandoned possibilities existed. A realm where forgotten worlds were born. A realm where even the origin had never reached. The slime looked back one final time. Then he entered the unknown. Because after surpassing monsters, after surpassing heroes, after surpassing gods, after surpassing creation itself, there was only one thing left: to discover what existed beyond everything. I can also create an image visualizing the slime's evolution journey from the weakest monster to a being beyond gods. The realm beyond creation was nothing like the universe the slime knew. There were no stars, no planets, no flowing rivers of magic, no laws of physics. It was a place where possibilities existed before becoming reality. Every direction contained countless paths. Every path represented a different version of existence. Worlds that were created, worlds that were destroyed before they could begin. Worlds where heroes won, worlds where heroes failed, worlds where civilizations reached impossible heights, and worlds where life never appeared at all. The slime floated silently through this endless sea of possibilities. For the first time since his reincarnation, he felt small again. Not weak, not powerless, but small because he finally understood how vast existence truly was. Even after surpassing gods, even after reaching the origin of creation, there were still countless mysteries beyond his understanding. The mysterious being who brought him here moved ahead. You see it now. The slime looked around. Yes, this place is outside the normal flow of existence, the being nodded. Every creature in the universe believes their world is everything. They believe their history is the complete story. But every reality is only one possibility among infinite others. The slime watched a nearby fragment of reality. Inside it he saw himself, another version of himself. A slime that never escaped the forest. A slime that was defeated by a stronger monster. A slime that never gained the skill merger. A life that ended before it truly began. The sight was strange, because that version of himself was not wrong. It was simply one possible ending. The mysterious being continued. Your greatest achievement was not becoming powerful. It was creating a possibility that should not exist. The slime looked at him. What do you mean? The being pointed toward the endless realities. Every existence follows a pattern. Born, grow, reach a limit, disappear. The gods followed this pattern. The primordial ones followed this pattern. Even the origin itself follows a pattern. The slime remained silent, but you broke it. The being looked directly at him. You reached the highest point and refused to stop there. You chose to begin again. The slime understood. His greatest evolution was not gaining more power. It was abandoning the need for power. A strange feeling appeared inside him. Something he had never experienced during battles. Contentment. But then the entire realm shook. The countless possibilities around them began disappearing. One by one, reality fragments vanished like flames being extinguished. The mysterious being's expression changed. This is impossible. The slime immediately became alert. What happened? The being looked into the distance. Something is consuming possibilities. A darkness appeared. Not an enemy approaching, not an attack. Something far more terrifying. An absence, a place where possibilities did not exist, where futures were erased before they could happen. The slime felt the skill merger react, but unlike before, it did not seek to absorb. It warned her. The darkness expanded. The mysterious being stepped backward. We must leave. The slime looked surprised. You are afraid? For the first time, the ancient being showed hesitation. Yes. That single answer revealed more than anything else. A being that existed beyond creation. A being that had watched countless universes appear and disappear. A being that feared nothing, was afraid. The slime looked at the approaching darkness. What is it? The being answered quietly. The end. The darkness moved closer. It is not a creature. It is not an existence. It is the opposite. It is what remains when all possibilities disappear. The slime analyzed it. But there was nothing to analyze. No energy, no structure, no ability, no weakness. It was not something that existed. And that made it impossible to understand. The darkness reached toward them. The mysterious being prepared an escape path. But the slime stopped. We cannot run. The being looked at him. Why? The slime stared at the endless possibilities disappearing. Because everything I became was because I faced things I could not understand. The being was silent. The slime continued. If I run from everything unknown, then I am no different from before. The small slime moved forward. The same creature that once feared a wolf. The same creature that once hid from stronger monsters. The same creature that once believed survival was impossible. But now he walked towards something even gods feared. The darkness touched him, and nothing happened. The slime expected destruction, pain. But instead, he saw. The darkness showed him everything it had consumed. Infinite worlds. Infinite endings. It was not evil. It was empty. A force that existed because everything eventually reached an end. The slime finally understood. The end was not trying to destroy. It was completing. Everything that existed had a beginning, and everything that began eventually ended. The end was simply the final step, but the skill merger reacted. Not with absorption, not with resistance, with understanding. The slime had learned something important. Even endings could create beginnings. A destroyed world left behind memories. A lost life created lessons. A failed path created another choice. Nothing truly disappeared. It became part of something else. The slime's final ability awakened. Not creation, not evolution, something beyond both, continuation. The ability to carry meaning beyond endings. The darkness stopped. For the first time, something impossible happened. The end hesitated, because it encountered something it could not erase. A being that did not depend on existence. A being that carried every experience inside itself. Every battle, every friendship, every defeat, every victory, every moment. The slime had become a living record of countless possibilities. Destroying him would not erase those things. They had already become part of the universe. The darkness slowly withdrew. The mysterious being watched in disbelief. You didn't defeat it. The slime looked back. No. What did you do? The slime answered simply. I understood it. The being remained silent. Because that was the truth. The slime had spent his entire journey trying to become stronger. But the final lesson was different. The strongest existence was not the one that defeated everything. It was the one that could understand everything. The realm began restoring itself. The erased possibilities returned. The countless worlds continued their stories, and somewhere within the endless possibilities, a new legend began. Not the legend of a slime who defeated gods, not the legend of a monster who surpassed creation, but the legend of a creature who reached the end of everything and chose to protect the beginning. The mysterious being looked at the slime with a new expression. Respect. Now I understand why the universe chose you. The slime turned. Chose me, the being smiled. Yes. Your reincarnation was never a reward. It was never a punishment. It was a question. The slime waited. Could something that started with nothing become something that gives everything meaning? The answer was already clear. The weakest slime had become the strongest proof. Not because he possessed unlimited power, but because he understood what power was for. The journey that began with death had finally revealed its true purpose. And yet, somewhere beyond even this realm, something else was watching. Not as an enemy, not as a challenger, but as a witness. Because the story of the slime had reached beyond the boundaries of existence itself. And when a single creature can change the meaning of evolution, the universe itself begins to wonder what comes next. Tôi cũng có thể tạo một hình ảnh minh họa hành trình tiến hóa của slime, từ sinh vật yêu nhất đến thực thể vượt qua cả thần linh. The universe continued, not because it was perfect, not because suffering had disappeared, but because every story still had the freedom to become something unexpected. And somewhere among those countless stories, the legend of the slime continued to spread. Not as a myth carved into stone, not as a name worshipped by temples, but as a feeling. A strange warmth that appeared during impossible moments, a forgotten courage that emerged when someone had no reason left to fight. A small voice inside countless beings whispering that their current weakness was not their final form. The slime had become invisible, but he had not become absent. He was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He watched worlds grow. He watched civilizations rise. He watched new generations appear that had never heard of gods, origins, or the battles that once shook existence itself. And he was satisfied, because this was exactly what he wanted. A universe where beings could create their own legends. However, there was one thing even the slime did not expect. When he became part of countless possibilities, he thought he had finally reached the end of his journey. But evolution had never truly been about reaching an ending. It was about discovering something new after every ending. And now something new was discovering him. Deep within the endless flow of possibilities, a small fragment separated from the slime's existence. Not a clone, not a copy. A memory, a single moment preserved from his very first days, the fear of being weak, the desperation of crawling through the forest, the loneliness of being a creature nobody valued. That fragment drifted through reality and eventually entered a forgotten world. A world where magic was dying. A world where ancient powers had vanished. A world where humanity stood on the edge of extinction. There, beneath a ruined city, a young child found something strange. A small glowing sphere resting among the remains of an ancient battlefield. The child picked it up. The moment their hand touched it, a familiar warmth appeared. Not overwhelming power, not instant strength, just a simple feeling. You can continue. The child looked around in confusion. There was no voice, no system, no divine blessing. Only a strange sensation that something impossible had just become possible. The child carried the sphere back to their village. Nobody believed the discovery mattered. The world had already given up. Monsters ruled the lands outside the walls. The remaining humans survived by hiding. Heroes existed only in old stories. Magic existed only in ancient books. Everyone believed their fate was already decided. But the child remembered the strange warmth. And for some reason, they refused to accept that the story was over. They began studying, not because they were talented. They were not. They failed countless times. Their magic was weak. Their body was fragile. Their family had no influence. They were exactly the kind of person the world ignored, just like the slime once was. But every failure taught them something. Every mistake became experience. Every defeat became knowledge. And somewhere beyond reality, the slime noticed a familiar pattern, determination, the same spark that had once existed inside himself. The slime watched quietly. He could have given the child unlimited power. He could have transformed the weak human into an unstoppable warrior instantly. But he did not, because he remembered. Power given without understanding could become a prison. So instead, he offered something smaller, a possibility, a chance. The child discovered forgotten techniques, ancient methods of combining different forms of magic, abilities that had been considered useless, small pieces of knowledge that nobody cared about. And slowly, very slowly, the impossible began. The child created something new, not a weapon, not a spell, a connection, a way for ordinary people to combine their strengths. Craftsmen, healers, soldiers, everyone contributed something. The village that once hid from the world began changing. Not overnight, not through a miracle, through effort, through cooperation, through countless small decisions. The same way the slime had evolved. The monsters outside the walls noticed. They attacked. They expected weak humans. They expected easy prey. Instead, they found something they did not understand. A group of ordinary beings who had learned how to stand together. The battle was difficult. Many fell. Many were afraid. But nobody surrendered. Because they had learned the most important lesson. Strength was not something only the powerful possessed. Strength was something created when people refused to abandon each other. From somewhere beyond existence, the slime smiled. Because this was the future he wanted. Not a universe protected by an unbeatable guardian. A universe where guardians could be created everywhere. The battle ended. The village survived. The child who discovered the fragment became known as the first person of a new era. Not because they were the strongest, but because they proved something forgotten. A weak beginning did not mean a weak ending. Years passed. The world changed. New kingdoms appeared. New heroes were born. New challenges emerged. And every once in a while, someone would discover a strange story. A story about a tiny slime that once challenged gods. A story about a creature that reached the end of everything but chose kindness. Most people thought it was only a legend, a fantasy, a tale created to inspire children. But some knew the truth. Because whenever someone reached a moment where they thought they could not continue, whenever someone stood before an impossible enemy, whenever someone looked at their own weakness and believed it defined them, they felt something. A gentle reminder. Not a command. Not a gift. A choice. The universe was not asking them to become the strongest. It was asking them to take one more step. And that was the final evolution of the slime. Not becoming the ruler of all things. Not becoming an eternal god. But becoming the reason countless beings believed they could change. The creature that began as the weakest monster became the strongest proof that every existence had value. Every life had possibility. Every ending could become a beginning. And somewhere beside a peaceful river in a forgotten forest, a small slime rested beneath the sunlight. No armies, no battles, no gods descending from the heavens. Just silence, just peace. The slime looked at the world around him. A world filled with countless stories. And for the first time since his first death, he felt complete. Not because he had reached the top, but because he finally understood. There was no top. There was only the next step. And as long as something was willing to take that step, evolution would never end.